What's worse than a soldier?
Boom. A child.
Starting as a child sold into slavery, can Jon get his revenge by escaping prison, creating an army of child soldiers, conquering territory, and kidnapping the leader of the holy nation that runs the slave camps? Welcome to Kenshi. This is a sandbox game allegedly about survival despite everything trying to kill you. This includes acid rain, roaming bandits, religious extremists, man-eating cannibals, and a buildable structure called the Peeler whose only purpose is to remove your limbs. If that seems harsh, it's only gonna get worse as we're starting in the slave pits of Rebirth, where putting a foot out of line results in you losing the foot. This is Jon. He is a child, and I speak from experience when I say children are easy to beat in combat. What this means for Jon in Kenshi is that he is weaker than everyone else, has worse stats, and is more likely to be treated like a little afternoon snack. Despite this, I'm going to create an army of children, put them through rigorous training, and use them to get my revenge on the Holy Phoenix, who is the leader of the Holy Nation. Yes, some of them will die, but that is a price I'm willing to pay, which, if you think about it, kind of makes me a hero. And so we have a plan to achieve our aims. Can we conquer Kenshi with child soldiers? We begin Jon's journey in the slave pits of Rebirth. This is a slave camp run by religious extremists with a strict schedule. This consists of forced labor, regular beatings, solitary confinement, and unusual punishment. I know this sounds like a lot of fun, and after a while, Jon is starting to buy into the cult.
Full indoctrination, that.
Pretty soon he's going to be asking people on the street if they've heard about the Light of Okram, so we're going to need to escape pretty quickly into the wider world of Kenshi. That is easier said than done, however, as each escape attempt is met with overwhelming violence. At all times we are either under constant watch or shackled up. Don't worry, I do have a plan to deal with the guards, but what you see as a large man battering a small child, I see as training. You see, as a child we have terrible stats, but by being repeatedly beaten up by the guards, we can level up our toughness. This slave camp, believe it or not, is actually the perfect place for us to hone our skills. For example, at night we can attempt to pick the locks on our cage. However, despite our small and nimble fingers being suited to the task, we're really bad at lockpicking. Just by pure probability we escape, but then we lock ourselves back in afterwards to keep grinding the skill. If we are caught, however, the guards will beat us into unconsciousness whilst reading the edgier side of Twitter. This means during the day we're going to have to act like a regular slave, which is easy because we are, fundamentally, a regular slave, only smaller. Eventually we'll have the stats and skills to beat any of these guards in a fight, but for now, we mine. This helps level our athletics skill, which is going to be very, very useful when running away from man-eating cannibals in the fog. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. After a few days of picking locks, I go ahead and pick the locks on the other prisoners' shackles as well. Some of them are ecstatic about this, whereas others prefer the slave life. A few attempt to immediately escape. Go on, you beautiful bastard, run! Which is exactly what I wanted, because I wanted to test the guard's response time, preferably without my spine being turned into powder. Unfortunately, most of the freed slaves gather around Jon as if he was going to try and lead them out. So when he pretends he was up to nothing and ties himself back to the pole, things get a little bit awkward. You guys are in trouble. Officer, these people over here are trying to escape. Officer, not me, I'm a good boy. It turns out these people were gathering because they were looking for a cross-platform RPG where you collect champions, build teams, fight bosses, clear dungeons, and get your kids back from your ex-wife. Apparently not that last one. What really got me hooked on this game is just how much there is to do. You've got PvE, PvP, clan bosses, faction wars, and if you're the kind of person that spends way too long optimizing a team for an extra 2% of damage, yeah, you're gonna have a good time. Right now is the best time to start playing Raid Shadow Legends, because if you use my link in the description as a new player, you'll get a great head start with 3 free legendary champions and a powerful epic in its limited time offer. You'll immediately unlock this legendary Elenaril from the High Elves faction, whose whole thing is poison mechanics. Yep, she's one of those characters that's fun to play because you ruin everyone else's fun. Thanks to the newest global Web of Corruption event, you can claim the brand new legendary champion Vallaryn the Equalizer for free by logging in for 7 days during the Vallaryn chase, but only if you start the event by the 31st of July. That's just the tip of the iceberg of Raid Shadow Legends, and they keep adding new content all of the time. But it doesn't stop there. They've got 6 different promo codes for you to choose from to get the 3rd legendary champion of your choice. Once you're in game and you hit the level 15, you'll unlock Epic Champion Ultimate Galek, a magic affinity orc. Personally, I'm a big fan of the orc because of his AoE HP burn. That's 4 incredible free champions just for using my link or QR code on screen now. So if you're interested, download Raid using my link or scan the QR code on screen now. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video. We're going to need to level our thievery skill, as once we attempt to escape, we will no longer be fed. We're kept in a malnourished state by the guards, fed just enough to not starve to death, but we're definitely weakened by this. This means we're going to need to find food quickly once we try to escape. To practice, we can steal items, then throw them on the ground, and do it again. It's not glamorous, and this is a very arduous process, but over the course of a couple of days and several real-life hours of picking up the same item and dropping it out of inventory again, we get pretty good at this whole stealing thing. Our stealth skill is also quite high on account of us being smaller than most, but also because I've been sneaking everywhere. The one advantage to being a homeless child is that no one really notices you. However, since I freed those slaves, each night they come to find me, leading to an uncomfortable situation where these grown men keep following around a child. Not only is this really creepy, their stats are nowhere near as good as mine, leading to us getting caught thanks to our lackeys. And it doesn't take much to put down a child. Still, these lackeys can be useful. I will often free slaves and let them try and run away as a sort of early warning human tripwire as to when the guards are close. I fancy myself as a bit of a detective, so if there's general screaming and severed limbs on the ground, there's a chance there may have been violence nearby. Unbeknownst to me at this point, each time that we take off our shackles to go sneaking, the guards will come and put another pair on us. These are very, very heavy and they go into my inventory, meaning that we are leveling up our strength by sprinting around with 6, 7 different pairs of shackles. No. This means that we're running around with around 5 shackles in our inventory, meaning we're over encumbered, which helps level our strength. This enables us to enact phase 2, martial training. As a child, our combat ability is somewhat limited, but this is something we can train by assaulting the guards.
Go on, attack all of them, you got this. Oof. Okay, rough hit. Go on, you got this. Swing! Swing!
I'm in danger.
Oh! Catch me!
At the moment, this always results in debilitating injuries with a small chance of a permanent disfigurement, but it does slowly level us up, especially if we get a group together and get in some cheap shots. Over time, we will get better attack, defense, and dodge, but the fully armed guards make this tricky. Fortunately, I have a plan. If the guards see someone, no matter who they are, with shackles on, they will treat them like a slave, and this is something I'm going to take to the extreme. For now, though, I want to trial escaping to see what our options are. I attempt to sneak out through the back gate, but I'm quickly attacked and battered. However, instead of taking me and caging me, the guards decide to leave me bleeding on the ground, which is something I'm going to retcon into being my plan all along.
Boom. It worked.
I need medical attention immediately or I will die, so I limp into a barracks and steal some bandages. After healing myself, I attempt to loot another guard only to be discovered and knocked out, at which point the guards act like my parents did and forget my existence entirely.
They've healed me, now they're gonna just, what, leave me alone? It's a very confusing escape.
Now that I've left, the guards come streaming back into the barracks. Perhaps they got bored of treating John like a football, or his general enjoyment of the beatings ruined it for them, but either way, we're free. For now. Marked on this map is the Lone Shack, rumoured to hold supplies for escaped slaves. John is badly injured, so we need to get there sooner rather than later. We continue north and up some mountains, and even discover some ruins. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's any possible way to get to the shack through these mountains, and certainly not on a leg that has the structural stability of wet spaghetti. The only route forward is the ruins, which have something moving in the distance. Upon closer inspection, these turn out to be blood spiders. What are blood spiders, you might ask? I have no idea, and I have no intention of finding out. With that revelation, we head back to Rebirth and go through the gates we escaped from. I scan the borders of the camp for any other way that I might be able to escape, but I keep coming to the same conclusion. There are simply too many guards for a clean exit, especially when we still have escaped slaves creeping up on us.
Could you stop following me?
This means we're going to have to convert as many guards to slave as possible by any means necessary. For that, we're going to need to get as many shackles as possible, which turns out to be an issue, as unlocking the shackles of our fellow slaves seems to make them disappear. Fortunately, on my trial attempt, I dumped a bunch of excess ones, so that's a start. It seems the best way of getting new shackles is to stand in front of a guard and demonstrate that I don't have any. Then, when I get into the cage, they will come over and put some on, leading me to take them and put them in my inventory, starting the process all over again. At night, I can sneak up to sleeping guards and place the shackles on them, thus getting them to join the slaves. This never stops being funny to me.
Instantly puts him in prison.
I have hours of footage of me just putting shackles on guards and giggling to myself. And it's still funny. However, if I couldn't get back into the cage in time, well, you know the drill by now. Given that it's been almost a month at this point, I've been able to level my assassination skill as well. This lets me do things like this.
Okay, alright.
Now that the guards are unconscious, I can go ahead and put shackles on them.
They're all waking up now.
Oh, I've got shackles on now. But I can actually go one step further. I can also remove all of their armor and weapons, rendering them unable to defend themselves. The next night, I not only stripped the guards and put shackles on them, I also kidnapped them and put them in cages. This went a long way in encouraging the guards to capture each other and denounce each other as heretics. And to be fair, from the captive guard point of view, they have no clothes, have shackles on, and are in a cage, so they must be a slave. Sort of like how you can convince a chicken it's dead by putting a hood on it. I can also use these captive guards to lure more guards to then put shackles on them and make more slaves. But on day 23, I saw something that shocked me.
Oh my god, that's another child. Oh my god, that's a child. That's who they've been bullying.
This prisoner has been swarmed by guards this entire time to the point where I couldn't peer past to see who it was. It turns out to be a fellow child, so I immediately get rid of the closest guard. I then grab him and put him in a cage. I then free our fellow child, but before I can talk to them, they then sprint straight into the oncoming blades of the guards. This actually results in their death, as we are hauled away and unable to help. So our first attempt at getting a fellow child soldier hasn't really worked out, but don't worry, one day we're going to have a crack team of specialists. Still, that does show you just how easily an adult man with a sword can beat an unarmed, malnourished child. If you didn't already know this, I'd encourage you to try it out for yourself. It's pretty easy. Clearly, John needs some intense practice sessions, so we capture another guard, strip him of his clothes and his armor, and suddenly, I have a safe training partner. At least, that's what I thought. Ah! Still, all we need is a little bit of practice. I steal back the weaponry, but this time I force shackles on him to limit his movement and speed even further.
There we go. Nice, good hit. Ow. Ow. It's just kicking a kid in the face. Nice. Good job.
So now, to develop our skills, we just need to keep on kidnapping training partners and then healing in between the fights. Even if the healing does take days, we're increasing our toughness when we do this. We've turned a slave camp into a place to get stronger, try out new hobbies, and even meet some new friends. Maybe this slave camp thing isn't that bad. Either way, the slave population is suddenly booming. You can tell who used to be a guard by checking their hunger. If it's above 100, then yeah, that used to be a guard and is now a slave. After a month of terrorizing the guards, it's finally time to leave. To achieve our end goal, we're going to need expensive gear, high combat stats, and fellow child soldiers. In Rebirth, we've managed to achieve incredibly high strength, toughness, assassination, thievery, and stealth skills, with more than a little laboring ability. But whilst fighting the guards is fun, it's not very efficient. Frankly, the only reason I've stayed this long is because I find it really funny to make slaves out of the guards. To escape, we free ourselves from our shackles, as well as several of our fellow slaves. Then we don some armor and weapons that we have scattered around the place. This disguises us as a Holy Nation guard, and provided they don't look too closely, we just look like a shorter guard and they'll let us pass through unmolested. The other prisoners I'm bringing along as a distraction for us.
Yep, yes, yes, nothing to see here.
I stop by the barracks to steal some food and grab a better weapon, as well as strip the men as one final goodbye. This place is now so undermanned, there is only one guard at the exit. And with that, we're in the wider world as the sun rises. Step 1 of escape prison as a child slave is now completed. It's time to get some weapons, armor, and skills. The first stop is to get to that lonely shack north of Rebirth. Along the way, there are several drones aimlessly circling, so we sprint past just as the LiveLeak logo begins to appear. Beyond this is a semi-derelict building, but I live in Birmingham, so this looks like a palace to me. This is the Flotsam Safe House. As a note states inside, this is meant to be a safe haven for escaped slaves from Rebirth. Whoever made this place really doesn't like the Holy Nation, which is good for us. Here we find food, a sleeping bag, and some bandages. Given that we're still malnourished, I decide to eat some food and settle down for a while to recover. After over a month of captivity, we are finally free and not actively dying. Leaving the house in the morning, the question looms of what next. Before assembling any fellow children to join our army of child soldiers, we need to improve our stats. Whilst we are strong and tough, an attack skill of 2 puts us on par with a particularly aggressive tadpole. Looking at this map, I decided to go to the center of the foggy area and see what was there. I was not prepared for what I would find. Our athletics means that we can outrun most hostiles. This is put to the test as I see some scattered remains and fail to put 2 and 2 together.
Run, John!
Eventually getting away, we come across more of these weird ruins of twisted metal, getting larger in size. Just beyond these ruins is a city, but then I realize we're being chased.
Run, John! Get to the city!
These are the Fogmen. In large numbers, they will attack anyone with a copper rod. Individually, they're not that hard to fight, but in a group, they will knock you unconscious and take you prisoner. Here, they will tie you to a pole and begin to pray. That might not seem that bad, all things considered, as in the UK, this is just a good night out. However, then they will begin to eat you alive, limb by limb. Unless someone is close by to help you and free you, you will bleed out if the numerous injuries don't kill you first. It's not the greatest place for me to pick for my escape. Running to the city, I make sure to drop my armor first, because the Holy Nation isn't well liked, and despite Jon's stature, he still looks the part. Fortunately for us, the guards will attack the Fogmen on sight, saving us from cosplaying as a chicken in KFC. Welcome to Mongrel. The guards claim it's a place of ex-slaves and outlaws that you are unable to leave, so for now, it's home. There are also other orphans here, but we're not quite ready for a child squadron yet. For now, this is our new playground, one that we'll use to get better at fighting and get better gear. Just outside the city, the Fogmen are fighting some guards. The guards are more than a match for the midget Fog heavies, so after they're done, we can go looting their bodies. Unfortunately, the Fogmen carry very little, but very little is still more than what we have. However, in this mess of bodies, we find a Fog Prince. Just look how much that head is worth. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our money-making scheme. I run back to town and find a merchant to sell to. I sell almost everything we have, including our weapons. Instead, we buy a large backpack and some sandals that'll help us run faster. We've now been promoted from ex-slave to scavenger. Beep has also been chasing us. This is a one-skill character that was rejected by a hive mind, and he will follow you until you let him join you. Unfortunately for Beep, the player character in question is a child, so now he has been thrown in prison and is on several government watch lists. Also in Mongrel are several shops like an armor trader. There's even a construction trader, something we'll make great use of later. For now though, someone outside the city gates is actively being eaten alive, and those harrowing screams mean only one thing: profit. Close by, a massive brawl is happening, but these two guards are apparently more than a match for a horde of Fogmen. Remember, just a single Fogman is enough to take us out, so we have a long way to go to get to that level. As the guards run off to save the screaming man, we have a battlefield to loot. These Fogmen are the lowest level, meaning they only fight with an iron stick. Given the prince head earlier, I was hoping for a little bit better. However, after checking several bodies, I realized this was as good as it was gonna get. Hanging around though is dangerous because we could end up like this man. I decided to take all the iron rods because they're worth something, at least. After taking as many as I could possibly carry, these are sold to the merchant for 24 cats each. Given that we'll probably need to defend ourselves, I buy a cheap staff. My new plan is to act as bait. I'm going to run towards the Fogman and get their attention, which immediately doesn't work, so I end up knocking one out instead. We may be bad at fighting, but we are a master at the ancient technique of smashing a rock on the back of someone's skull who's not expecting it. One by one, I knock the Fogmen out, even able to access the shinobi man that has been tied up by them. I could free him, but that is a really nice looking blade he's got. By chance, we even managed to knock out a Fog Prince, with their non-midget variety of head giving 6,000 cats each. This does get some Fogmen attention at the precise moment where I don't want it, given I have just torn the head off of their chief.
Help! Help, guards, help!
In the ensuing melee, Jon lands a couple of hits before running away. This is how we're going to have to train for now, as it's the safest we'll get. If we did this in the open and lose, well, even few in number, the Fogmen are beyond us. Here we're fighting one that is actively carrying the corpse of someone else, and we are still getting our ass beat. Clearly we need a new plan, so I put down my sleeping bag and settle down for the night. Selling my goods in the morning, it nets us 8,397 cats. And then I approach the shinobi thieves. The boss tells me I can join, giving me access to training in the tower and somewhere to stay, but it will cost 10,000 cats. This is going to be really important, both now and in the future, training other orphans. So we have our new goal, 10,000 cats. Joining a battle outside actually results in our first kill, and yes, stabbing a cripple who's actively crawling away from a battle does count as a kill. It's what my uncle went to prison for, so I should know. However, once again, a solo Fogman carrying a corpse forces me to flee. After a while, we sell enough loot to get within touching distance of the 10,000 target. Given we have a labouring ability of above 80, I thought mining would be a good way to get the last bits of cash. But not only do the ruins yield nothing, I'm also jumped by the omnipresent Fogmen and almost killed. Clearly, we shouldn't deviate from what works. Therefore, I sneak back to the nearest collection of Fogmen, knock out the Fog Prince, and take his head. Selling it takes us over our target, and we join the shinobi thieves. These training dummies will allow us to level up our skills to a point, so much like Rebirth, it's time to grind. After a few days of this, we get all we can get out of the dummies. It's a start, but it's not going to take us all the way. With our excess cash, we buy some armor, which should help protect us, as I put into place our new plan. The sneaking around reminded me of our time in prison. I knock out a couple of Fogmen and abduct one. I then put him down and wait for him to wake up, which doesn't happen because he's dead. I then steal a Fog Prince to train against. No, I said put him down, not throw him into the sky. But instinctively, I loot him and tear off his head. This predictably instantly kills him. The other issue is that the fog heavies still cause me a lot of problems. I end up knocking out a bunch of them to try and find a normal fogman, but there's none to be found. I take a fog heavy anyway and wait for him to wake up, but he just plays dead. I try leaving the area, but he's clearly a method actor that refuses to admit that he's alive. I run back to grab a new fogman, but the funding of Fogman Liberal Arts is clearly bearing fruit as this one also refuses to get up. Worse than that, when I walk away to try and get him to stand up, he pulls a fast one on me.
Where's he gone?
Frustrated, I try a different gamble. These gorillas wander around and they are really tough. But by attacking him unprovoked and running towards the guards, we'll get some backup. This isn't the most honourable thing to do, but what do you expect from a child who was raised in the mines? Eventually, the gorilla succumbs to its injuries and we can loot it. I pursue this strategy for a while and eventually buy a heavy polearm, which will be our primary weapon for the rest of the game. It's good against armor and has a decent amount of reach. Am I increasing my combat ability by attacking crippled fogmen? Yes. In my defense, I am playing as a child. This is already really hard. After a few more days of kiting fogmen back to Mongrel, we can actually handle ourselves in a scrap. After day 42 rolls by, I pick up some heavier armor as well as some food. Once I ambush a gorilla that somehow ended up on the city walls, I think it's finally time to leave Mongrel. Having honed our skills individually, it's time to assemble a group of child soldiers. Heading in a random direction, we reach an area called Dreg before heading into Ocran's Gulf. Now, a few of you may remember that name from my time in Rebirth, but at this point I've been playing for a couple of days and so it didn't click for me. I also made the exact same mistake as I did before, as I saw the spoils on the ground and not the dogs that created them. Immediately I begin to run, but our right leg isn't fully healed and our loot is weighing me down. Fortunately, I discover the town of Stack and run straight towards it, assuming the guards will help. As we get closer, the guards spring to action, which is exactly what I hoped for. But then they start attacking me. This is bad, as I now have a squad of religious fanatics joining the battle, as well as some dogs, and I don't know which is worse.
I have to activate sport mode.
Sport mode, by the way, means that I drop everything and just run away. It takes a whole day of running and more than a few injuries, but I eventually escape. It was only at this point I realized that this was a part of the Holy Nation, and they're still sore about the whole escaped slave thing. I sneak back to retrieve my items, but can't resist trying to knock out a soldier, who promptly realizes and kicks me into the dirt. This was a loss so bad that it sent me back to Mongrel, and genuinely ended my Kenshi session for the night. After arriving, I sell all my looted gear and set off in a different direction to try and find some children. I first stumble upon a high village, which I assume is how Americans view London. Passing through Vane, I end up at Squin, where I am promptly racially abused. This is home of the Shek people, whose population are dwindling after several kamikaze attacks in their recent wars with the Holy Nation. From my perspective, I can excuse racism when they have a bounty system for me to make money from. This is going to help us a lot later on. For now though, I see no children, and I'm starting to think that the ones we saw in Mongrel might be the last children ever in Kenshi. So when I travel to the hub, I see something that brings tears of happiness to my eyes. Malnourished orphans. Steadfast asks us for money, and that kind of entrepreneurial spirit is exactly what we need in our child soldiers, so we ask him to join us. Flick joins, followed by We, a name I really wish I'd changed, and finally Squint. Where are we going? They ask. We're going to get revenge on the leader of the Holy Nation. But we're a ways off that, as their skills leave a lot to be desired. We have some fighting ability, which is really good, and Squint's not that far off either. But Steadfast isn't great, and Flick is worse than useless. Later on, we'll devise a system of getting new recruits for our child soldier army, but for now, we have our team. Our first order of business is to get them some food, because they are on the brink of death, and malnourished soldiers tend to not do that well in combat. Unless it's the First Crusade, in which case people fear your cannibalistic ways, and they will actively give you food to get you to Jerusalem faster because they fear you chopping off their ass cheeks and cooking them. True story. Dropping everything on the floor, we divide our weapons and armor, what little we have, amongst the children according to their abilities. The hub isn't home to much, as it was raised in the wars between the Holy Nation and the Shek Kingdom, but it does have a tower belonging to the Shinobi Thieves. Thanks to our membership, we can take them upstairs and have them work on their skills. Lockpicking, assassinations, and melee proficiency can all be trained here. Whilst they're grinding away, I take John to buy some food, as well as pick up some crossbows. It might be a while until they can fight proficiently, and this is a nice support option for them. Now we had food, it was time to sit back and let the boys train. It will take some time before they can rival John though. After a few days of grinding away, it's time to take them into the real world and see what they can get up to. Also, whilst we're in the wilderness, I make sure to sneak everywhere, trying to level up their sneaking in line with John's. Also a nice parallel to John's time in Rebirth. Actually, that would imply that I've enslaved these children. But they're free to go whenever, it's just they really prefer being a child soldier. At least I think, I haven't actually asked them. I rename our faction to the Children and head out.
Discovered holy mines.
Holy mines are sort of like Rebirth, but in miniature. You have guards, manual labor, and a general lack of regard for human life. In other words, a perfect training ground. It doesn't take long for old habits to kick in, and I knock out the guards. Not only is this very funny, it gives us access to more weapons and armor. I then grab the disarmed man, and I think you can see where this is going.
Let me teach you how I trained back in the day.
Once the guard wakes up, it's time to train.
Right, lads. Get him. He's booked it!
John stands back as this man is assaulted by several well-armed children. Truly, this is our dream manifest. They did so well, I actually went and grabbed a second training buddy, but in putting him down, I accidentally triggered Kenshi's first satellite launch.
Found another one. Oh my god. No idea where that man went, but hey, we'll grab the other one.
I have to point out this was a full 20 minutes of in-game time that man was flying for.
Oh my god. He's back, boys!
Our team isn't injured too badly, and it's time for round 2. This works really well, as by the time they are finished with the first guard, the second recovers from their brief stint of unconsciousness, allowing us to fight again. You may see this as cruel or barbaric, but I have a squad of orphaned child soldiers. Morality was left at the door a while ago. Whilst the others fight, I couldn't resist sending John into the prison for old time's sake. Inside, I knock out a guard and put him in a cage. This will never not be funny to me. This mine houses 10 or more well-trained guards, and we're not able to take them all at present. Don't worry though, this is something we will do later. Instead, I focus on getting another volunteer for training. In fact, I grab a couple. We leave the mines with 3 guards slung over our backs and head to the back of the compound to train. The first one to wake up seems startled by a group of heavily armored preteens attacking him, but is perhaps more shocked by the fact that one of them is doing so whilst carrying an adult man at the same time. Eventually though, we do manage to beat the unarmed men into unconsciousness. Oh, sorry, one sec. Oh, just got a job offer from the US police. We continue this training regimen for the next few days. We do keep on having to grab new recruits because each time the guard will eventually die of blood loss thanks to copious stab wounds from the children. Again? Hi. Sorry, is that every street gang in London? You're interested in the children? However, one day a large group of soldiers appears outside the mines, which does hamper progress. We've also run out of food and will slowly starve to death unless we get going. I didn't want to leave empty-handed though, so I set the children to mine. Not only does this help increase their strength, it also gives us some copper to sell. We travel day and night and make it into the border zone. However, not anticipating trouble, I wasn't paying attention as I was too busy googling how many Holy Roman Empire princes there were at its peak. Meaning when we're attacked by hungry bandits, I allow us to get surrounded. Given how many of them there are and how spread out we are, Flick and we quickly fall unconscious. Soon after, Steadfast and Squint also fall, leaving only John alone against 12 bandits. I didn't anticipate him doing this well, but the combination of heavy armor and a polearm that can hit multiple people at the same time, as well as relatively weak opponents, allow him to take on the crowd. However, he eventually too falls unconscious, but the bandits simply move on because we have no food to loot. This allows us to bandage our wounds and wait for everyone to wake up. We then get ambushed by another group, though this time we're able to fight back. Mostly. I realize this is fantastic training for the children, so we go hunting more bandits. After a few more fights, we've gotten much better skills, but poor Flick is standing on fragments of his femur, and the rest of the squad isn't looking too much better either. Taking off all our gear to help with stealth, we move towards a building in the distance. This is the Smuggler's Bar, apparently a building owned by the Greyflayers, who smuggle hashish, and not children. Inside, we can buy some much needed food and sell some stolen gear. More importantly, we can send John in alone, who demonstrates the value of child thieves by going upstairs and stealing copious amounts of food. We also find this Third Eye Trance manuscript, which I'm not really sure what it is, but it's worth 250,000 cats if we sell it, and if we buy it, it's worth 1 million. This might seem incredibly valuable, but it's so valuable that no vendor can actually afford to buy it, thus rendering it completely useless. I'm still going to steal it though. The Smuggler's Bar also gives our troops somewhere to rest and recover. Once we're healed, it's back off to find somewhere else to train. We come across some settled nomads, and I did briefly consider sacking the settlement, but it turns out they have tame dogs, and I really don't think my relationship could survive the murder of virtual dogs. Heading into the Flats Lagoon, I make out a city in the distance that looks like it was built on some sort of oil rig. The owners of this settlement are the Tech Hunters, and they have really good stats, though they're not immune to a quick thunk. Their gear, whilst nice, isn't fantastic, so if this is their natural ability pushing up their stats this high, we have found somewhere perfect to train. This is our home for a long time, using the lands around as training for what is to come next. Conquest. After 10 days of non-stop fighting, and more than 2 hours in real life of playing the game, our squad stats are looking much better. We can now take on Holy Nation soldiers in a straight 1-to-1 fight, though not without losses. If this place looks familiar, we're back to the Holy Mines that we first started training in. With starving bandits causing a ruckus at the entrance, there's an opportunity here. The fight rages for a better part of a day, and whilst we're not in the best shape, we go in. The first 2 guards fall relatively quickly, but a Holy Sentinel joins in to even up the odds. Once they're dealt with, there's some guards manning the turrets on the wall that need to fall quickly. Bear in mind that we only have a max health of 65, so 1 bad hit and we go tumbling off the walls. Still, children are hardy, as proved by John taking a turret to the face and continuing undeterred. The problem is that we do enough damage to knock them unconscious, but after a while they stand back up and we have to fight them again. There's no way to finish off an unconscious enemy in Kenshi. Child soldiers are fine, but apparently double tapping an enemy is a step too far. As such, the battles continue well into the next day, with us having to continue patch ourselves up in between fights, but never enough to fully heal. Still, at least John is now leveled enough to take on Sentinels solo. He even finds the time to trash talk his enemies. I resort to a strategy of finding any unconscious guards and standing over them before battering them again, hoping to cut off a limb or 2. This, coupled with taking the opportunity to strip them of any gear, makes life a lot easier. After the bloodbath, there's only a single slave left standing, so we free him and send him on his way. I'm sure he'll be fine. The final guards that haven't died from their wounds we put into cages to avoid having to fight them again. The only risk came when a paladin managed to take out Styrefast and shackle him. Fortunately, John was there to bravely stab him in the arm from behind. And with that, we could rest for the night, having dealt our first blow to the Holy Nation by completely taking over the Holy Mine. The saga demonstrated that we can win fights, but we need better gear. I also have another plan in mind, so we head back to Mongrel. In the morning, once we're healed up, we head out, and almost immediately upon entering the Foglands, we are chased by our old friends, the Fogmen. In a nice contrast to earlier in the video, we are now able to dispatch these weaker variants with ease, and I started to get a bit cocky. But then came more Fogmen.
Uh-oh. Nice, John. Keep it going. Otherwise it's going to eat us all alive.
Again, a loss here doesn't mean getting looted. A loss here means we become a new flavor of Fogman Gummy.
Don't let him take Styrefast. He's up. No, they picked up Flick! They've thrown him!
Eventually, it's just John and the final 2 Fogmen.
Cut off his arm. Nice. If we don't win this, John, we get eaten by cannibals. Nice. Whew.
We just about survived this encounter, and it's all because I was too cocky and decided we didn't need to sneak anywhere anymore. The Fogmen are continually patrolling this area, and it's only thanks to this guerrilla pack that we survive. Thankfully, they absolutely maul the Fogmen, giving me the chance to escape what should have been a fatal encounter. Eventually, we make it back to the familiar site of Mongrel. Here, we can buy the armor we desperately need, and thanks to our adventures in the lagoon, we have a bit of money to spend. We have a lot of injuries, so we go to sleep them off in the Shinobi Tower. However, during the night, something happens.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What's that? I've just been stolen. Oi! Let them steal your friends. All right, stand guard outside in case the our allies don't do it. I cannot believe that they straight up stole us.
We now have skills, arms and armor, and a full squad of children. So now we need a way of recruiting more into our child army. To do this, we're going to need to recruit willing volunteers and convince them to join our army. For this, we're going to need a place of our own in prisoner cages. First, we buy a shack and evict the existing tenants who didn't know this was taking place, like any good landlord. To get prisoner cages, we need tech level 3, which means a level 3 research bench. To get a level 3 research bench, we need tech level 2, which requires a tech level 2 research bench. You get the idea. We begin with a level 1 research bench, but to actually build it, we need building materials, which are scarce and expensive. To get a research bench level 2, we need small house. This is actually a technology, but I assumed it meant we had to buy a small house and that the shack was simply too small. So instead of simply researching the appropriate technology, I lead my group of misfits into the wastelands once more. Remember that skin police station that handed out bounties? It's time for us to transform from a group of child soldier wannabes to bounty hunters. Approaching the unknown tower on the map, we're looking for the Dust King. He's described as having an army of bandits surrounding him. We're gonna have to take out this whole tower of bandits, fighting floor after floor to... Wait. That's him? He's just standing outside? Our next target is the leader of the exiles, Tora the Fearless. She's located in a heavily guarded exile camp, surrounded by fanatic loyalists who will do anything to... John, have you just knocked her out? Turning in Tora gives us another 10,000 cats, which is more than enough for our plans. We head to the hub, which is now going to be our home base, as the Shinobi Tower gives us a place to train new recruits. Here we buy the Stormhouse, a derelict 2-story building that should suit us nicely. However, I hadn't really thought about the fact we'd need to repair a derelict house ourselves. This requires building materials, of which we have none. The local bar has some, but not enough. So we head back to Squin to buy more, but this vendor too doesn't have enough to meet our needs. Instead of traveling further afield, we alternate between buying from the local bar and from Squin every single day. We are single-handedly responsible for a shortage of building materials in this region, and it's all to kidnap some orphans. More importantly though, the house has been completed. We're officially no longer homeless, and it's time to get to work. As before, we build the level 1 research bench, and it's only at this point I realized my mistake surrounding the small house.
I'm an idiot. I thought that meant I had to... I'm an idiot. I thought it meant I had to be in a small house. I'm so dumb, man. I'm so stupid.
By dropping books in the research bench, we can research small house. Then we can get tech level 2, which allows us to build a level 2 research bench, which is the largest structure I've ever seen. After a few hours of building, it's complete and we can start to research tech level 3. I'm cutting out a lot of footage of me running between Squin and the hub trying to gather materials, but at least we is leveling up her science. After this, we can build the level 3 research bench, which is built the day after. And finally, we can research imprisonment. All of that to figure out how a cage works. Still, we can now put down these cages, but the phenomenal amount of metal they require means more supply runs. Finally though, one of the cages is done. All we need now are some willing recruits. Around the corner, we hear some orphans complaining about food, which sounds to me like they're volunteering. Then we can put them in the cages and work on recruiting them. You might see a small and frightened child, but I see a hardened killer that's going to turn into a veteran soldier for the army. I'm not best pleased about being kidnapped and put into a cage initially, but through careful conversations and providing them food, we can convince them of the merit of joining the army. Thanks to the proximity of the Shinobi Thieves Tower, we can then send them off to train. Thus, we achieve our penultimate aim of creating a steady tide of recruits for our army. With that done, we look to our final aim, the Holy Phoenix himself. This man is the head of the Holy Nation, and we're gonna grab him. He lives in the throne room at Blister Hill, so after grabbing some supplies, we send our squad after them. To be honest, my original plan was to send in wave after wave of untrained children as a distraction, but the recruitable prisoners mod breaks my game, so we're gonna have to do without. We head out into the wastelands and into Okram's Gulf, making sure we dodge any patrols that we see on the roads. Just after dawn, we catch our first glimpse of the capital. Here we hide out of sight to scout the place and wait until nightfall. On the walls are several turrets and turret gunners that will be problematic if not dealt with, as children are famously allergic to high velocity rounds. As night falls, we approach the gates. Each child takes out a guard and there's a chorus of thunks. Stay a fast flick, we and Squint are set up to secure the walls and turrets. Removing the guards' weaponry like we've done 1,000 times before, the plan is in place. The idea is that this lot on the walls will fight and fire turrets, causing a distraction for John to slip through all of the guards and grab the Holy Phoenix. He manages to slip past the second set of guards in gate, after which I mistake the barracks for the throne room and almost get caught. Meanwhile, the lads on the wall have begun their job and started to fight for their lives, meaning the countdown is on. The guards don't suspect a thing as John enters the throne room. Inside should be the Holy Phoenix, but I can't see him anywhere. After checking the roof, I begin to panic, as the others won't be able to hold for long, and I can't see the Holy Phoenix in the throne room either. I can see his right-hand man, but they're clearly fighting, as he's not come to bed for cuddles. But by checking every single person in here, I find him amongst his men, asleep. With a 47% chance of success, I grab him and begin to run.
I got him. We gotta go.
Now the adult napping has taken place, we can start our escape. The plan is for the other four to run now and lead the guards away from John, who is slowed by the adult man over his shoulder.
Go. I need you to take all of them away. Go. Alright, we'll meet up with you soon. Go. Got his ass. Go, John, go! He's still being chased. Alright, fortunately we could swim faster than they can.
Our time in the lagoons and beyond has leveled our swimming far higher than most others, meaning we can escape across the river and then rendezvous with John. And with that, we've taken the Holy Phoenix prisoner as John informs the child soldiers about what will happen next. Firstly, we strip him of his gear and then take him home. John is even beginning to feel positive for the first time. Eventually, we make it back to the hub and then head to our house and put the Holy Phoenix in a cage. Here, he tries to mog us, but it's less effective when you've been taken prisoner by a 10-year-old and his friends. We set him free, which he is initially quite excited about, until he realizes he's surrounded by preteens with swords and a grudge. John even fights him one-on-one, but he loses the unarmed round 2, though fortunately that's what child soldiers are for.
Truth is, game is rigged from the start. Get him, boys!
Now that we've had our fun, it's time for the actual revenge to take place. We heal the Phoenix, and John slings him over his shoulder and sets off into the wasteland. He plots a course all the way back to where the story began in Rebirth. Alone, arriving at the all-too-familiar gates, he waits for nightfall. Under the cover of darkness, he sneaks back to the slave camp he once escaped. Through the gates, down across the bridge, and all the way back to the slave quarters. One of the former guards turned slaves actually recognizes us almost 100 days since we first started. We grab a pair of shackles and place them on the Holy Phoenix, converting him into a slave in one of his own slave camps. And of course, I had to wait until morning to see how they'd react to his enslavement after all. Firstly, they heal him up like any other prisoner. And when I put him down in front of the guards, he had this to say. They then put a slave outfit on him and force him to do manual labor. With a slave collar around his neck, they even tie him to a post, unaware of who he is. And with that, our revenge is complete, and a child army has toppled the largest nation in Kenshi. In the comments below is a playlist of all of these narrative style of videos. If you don't mind liking the video and subscribing whilst you're there, it helps me out a lot.
Remember to download Raid Shadow Legends with my link down in the description below.